Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, where I, your host, Dr. Jim Hoven, have a chance to meet with amazing people every single week. And today is no exception. Today, I have a longtime friend, actually, someone who's been in my life for years through a gym that I was a part owner in and she was integrated with. And now, just through we've taken seminars together, we've taught on the same platform at Rockdale. We've had some amazing interactive experiences. Now it's me and you. Lori Frederic is my guest today. She actually has created this incredible platform for workers that we're going to talk about, and it's called Balance Biomechanics. She is I got to read this because you're not only the founder, but I couldn't believe this, Lori. You're the Chief Movement Geek. We're going to talk about movement geek because I love that term. So Lori, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, we've been working on this for a while.
I know, right?
Trying to get here. And I got to say, you were one of my inspirations. As you know, there was a time where I was posting stuff on the internet every single day, right? And it was all of my stuff was based on positivity and personal growth and all that kind of stuff. And one of the people that really kept me going in that was you. And I've never told you this, right? So I'm telling you face to face for the first time. Nice. Because you're so consistent and you were working with, and I saw you take some heat, by the way, on TikTok when you use do you remember using rock tape for flip-flops?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. I got nailed for that. There's some opinionated people out there.
There are. But anyway, so you were inspirational for me. So thank you for that.
And you've made
absolutely, you've made a really big impact in people's lives in the social media world. So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about what you do, who you are as the Movement Ninja?
The Movement Ninja. It's kind of evolved a bit over time, but I've always been centered around movement because my background is I'm a strength coach and I'm a massage therapist. And so the interest has always been there, but I get the joy of having a company that helps people in like blue collar industries and high hazard stuff move better and pay more attention to their own bodies.
So we're going to come into that, but I want to discuss your background. I am so interested because I've seen you teach, right? And because like I say, you and I taught at Rock Tape together. How did you get started? Were you massage therapist first or strength coach first?
I was strength coach first.
And then, so what took you into massage therapy from strength? That's an interesting...
Well, it wasn't too long after. My mom's a massage therapist.
Ah, gotcha.
So that's where the bridge came from. Mm-hmm. But I graduated from Arizona State with my exercise science. And I got a job in an athletic club, Denver Athletic Club here.
Yeah, great club.
And then my mom was always like, well, why don't you try massage? I'm like, sure. I mean, she taught me things. So everyone's like, oh, you're good at that. And I'm like, well, let me get better at that. And went in through sports massage and it's a great combination because it's always like, well, I can hurt you and then I can fix you.
Well, but when you went back, so I'm interested, when you were going to college, taking your degree in exercise science, you were going through that. Did you have in mind a direction that you wanted to take your life at that point? Because you say your mom talked to you about massage. What was your thought? Were you really athletic growing up? Is that what took you into that? Or
I was in sports, so that was easy. I think like through high school when they did career days and things like that, I was like, ooh, I want to be a surgeon. There was this fascination with that, and I did a day on the job following a surgeon around. It was really cool. And then I was like, that's a lot of school. I kind of eyeballed that one.
For sure.
And so I'm like, well, maybe PT, maybe something, but I'm like, still more school. And just looked at all the major opportunities. I'm like, ooh, exercise science sounds really cool. I had an ACL tear myself.
Sports injury?
Yeah. Gymnastics senior year in high school.
Ouch.
And then also senior year in college. But the one in high school is probably really what directed me into the sports medicine world and exercise science. So, yeah.
And since then, you've really honed your skills to where now, again, the movement thing, what I think is so cool and unique about you, Lori, is I've known many fantastic massage therapists, and they make a difference in the quality of life for so many people. It's unbelievable. But because you then have this strength component, you've combined the movement and the muscle, right?
Yes.
The contraction and the relaxation. So where did that come from? How did that brainchild come to be?
That definitely evolved, right? I mean, I think when I started massage therapy and I had people coming to me, they're like, the back of my neck and my upper back really hurt and they're sore, rub there. and I was like, okay, I'm, good at and learning my anatomy. I think massage is what really helped me learn my anatomy.
For
like
sure.
touching, following, like learning exactly where all those muscles go, helped me a ton. Not just like memorizing where they are on the skeleton, but so that helped me learn more and then get more movement based. But, having everyone come rub their back and where it hurt, and then it wasn't really helping long term. I was like, wait a second, how's this going? And then thinking more posture, like, okay, wait a minute. This is all, it's all tight in the front of the neck actually, because your posture sucks and you need to get your head back over your shoulders. So I'm going to leave the back alone. Let's all work on the front muscles. And then they're like, oh my gosh, it just stopped hurting because I got in better position. So kind of getting to the source of it and not just the symptoms.
Interesting.
And then it just spreads from there. So once I got that light bulb, as is with everything, you're like, knee pain, hip pain, okay, it's not there, right? Ida Rolf, where you think it is, it isn't. Just gets you thinking bigger.
Right. It's interesting, you say something about, and we'll go just clinical for a minute here. One thing I learned in treating so many people with neck pain, headaches from the chiropractic side was we were always adjusting spines and working suboccipitals and working levators, right? We're always doing that. No one ever told me in school or even in some of my mentors about the anterior scalenes. And what I found was when you find the anterior scalenes, and for those of you that are listening or watching, the anterior scalenes, they live kind of way down deep inside here. And boy, to get to them is no fun. But if it's no fun, it means it's exactly what you need. And I'm telling you, headaches, neck pain, stuff into the shoulders, arms, magical improvement with the scalenes. And that's what you're saying, right? Like so many people's head carriage is forward that we're stretching in the back and we're shortening in the front. And that's what you noticed?
Yeah. I all the time refer to the bowling ball of a head, right? Because the head is an average weight of like 12 pounds, which is a really decent bowling ball. And if that's forward or out of place all the time, then all those muscles are just struggling the whole time to hold it up. So just addressing where they're holding their head and going from there is really good. And, one thing I never learned in massage school really is sometimes it's good not to touch it. Like it's already overstimulated. It's already like angry. Don't touch it sometimes. Go somewhere else. And that took a while to really kind of get instinctual on.
Yeah. And I think we as providers tend to go to the site of pain. And of course, our mutual friend, Perry Nicholson, always talks about stop chasing pain, right? But look rather through these patterns that you and I are going to get into in a moment, these functional movement patterns. And a lot of people like you and I will be calling it fascial planes or this kind of stuff. But essentially, remember what our grandma said, that the ankle bone's connected to the neck bone in the little song?
Right.
It's true, right? And so where did you find love for that? When did that become the passion of the movement side of it as opposed to the localization?
Geez. It kind of just dripped along the way. Just more and more, I guess, these little things that you help people and they're like, oh my gosh, that helps so much. I'm like, ooh, let me learn more, go down that path, read more, just self-taught through a lot of different things, right? I've always been one where I can't make a choice of, like ART or just different therapies. I'm like, no, I want to learn about it all.
Yes.
And then just trying new things with different people. But it's probably the success of having someone just look at you and they're like, oh, I feel so much better. Just helps you keep going.
Isn't that feedback amazing?
Oh, it's great.
Right. And you've been in some really powerful networks, and we're going to talk about your company soon. But I know one of the big turning points in my life, I got a diplomate in sports injuries after college. I got acupuncture certified, NAET certified. I did a lot of stuff. But what I found was the thing that really brought a lot of stuff together for me was the rock tape experience, because of Dr. Capobianco, Allison Evans, some of these people that were creating these programs that were, like you say, bridging thought processes and concepts, that it wasn't unique. Now it's bringing them together. That changed my world. And when I got to teach it, like when I practiced is one thing, but when I got to teach it, light bulbs went on across America.
I agree.
That to me was the ultimate turn on.
I agree. It was a huge turning point. I am so lucky to have tripped on rock tape. I mean, I stumbled upon it. It was it meant to be moment, because it just so happened that I lived in the area and I was looking for a gym to work out at. And I was like, oh, Project Move, what's that? And then just meeting the people there and talking about it. But the whole fact of Rock Tape, when you take a class or you just get behind their philosophy of everybody has something to bring to the table. And it was no longer like, oh, you're just a massage therapist. I'm this or that, or, like this weird hierarchy that's supposed to be there of what kind of medical professional you are. When they just bring that beginning of classes, like everybody has something to offer. Let's share our brain and perspective, because it's so true. You can, you learn all your education and you get a bit tunnel visioned on what you've learned and experienced. So then all of a sudden you talk to someone, they're like, well, have you ever tried this? And you're like, oh my gosh, no, that is brilliant. It's such a atmosphere to build each other up, and again, life-changing for sure.
Right. Remember what they called that open source? Remember when we would do the courses
Yes.
open source? And I was just listening to a podcast yesterday and they were talking about betting on, and it was a Tony Robbins podcast who I love. And he said, who would you bet on, Microsoft or a bunch of volunteers to change the world? And of course, I'm boiling the story down, but the bottom line is Microsoft was trying to come up with a way to get the world information on everything at the same time as Wikipedia was being formed. Wikipedia, all open source, all volunteer. And of course, it dominated what Microsoft tried to do. And that's what I think the beauty of Rock Tape was for me, was that, like you say, whether you were a massage therapist, acupuncturist, chiropractor, physical therapist, medical doctor, everyone was welcome to the tribe to bring in their concepts and their networks. And then these beautiful courses were and still are going on that changed movement. And was that instrumental in you developing your business, or were you already in your business and that helped you formulate more of your concepts?
I was already in the business. And
balanced biomechanics?
Of balanced biomechanics, yeah. So that was already there and going, but it was really more lifting, training, ergonomics sort of thing. I mean, still is, but Rock Tape, when I was learning more about it, because I myself was skeptical, I'm like, really? You're going to put tape on something that's going to feel better? Are you kidding? Right? I'm a skeptic for everything first. And so digging into that more and finding out more about it, and then putting it into my work world of safety and ergonomics, and researching this little data point of, oh, well, OSHA lists kinesiology tape as a first aid tool, and we can get into that later. But I was like, this is huge. And I talked to Capo and we had a meeting. I'm like, do you know how big this is? Because you have this really great product and this really big need, and there's a huge void, and you need to go there.
And what a great leader he is, because he's a great listener, right? And he took your thought and said, yeah, let's explore it. Let's run with it. And now look, a product is born. And now your company, when you're looking at balanced biomechanics, you're focusing predominantly on blue collar workers, right? And I know you talked about biohazard as well. Explain to the listeners and the viewers why the need for this.
I think it's a group, it's a population that has the most amazing work ethic, but they hardly ever take care of themselves.
Yes.
So, right, they're not ones to go get a personal trainer or a nutritionist or go get a massage. Okay, that's very uncommon.
Yeah, it's kind of not in their ethos. It's not the culture to do that. Like, if you don't want to admit it, if you're going to see a massage therapist, like saying you're a dude going to get your nails done.
Yeah, they're like, I'm going to do yoga. You're like, don't say that out loud, right? We call it mobility for a reason. I don't say yoga ever. That's like the Y word.
Yeah.
You call it mobility because it's very much badass. And then you sneak in to a lot of different ways. But I mean, it really fell into my lap that I got to work with tradespeople and in industry, and I fell in love with it from the beginning. So
how did you fall into it? Cool story?
Not a huge story. There was, I got recruited to teach for a company that's actually out of Canada. And then I was like, really? We can do this? We can teach to companies of people? And just did it for a little bit of time, and then realized that people are like, well, I can't really find a U.S. company that does this. I'm like, well, my husband was just transitioning in jobs at the time, and he's a good GSD guy. We can swear on here, right?
Of course.
Okay, well, yeah, he's the get shit done specialist.
Yeah.
By all means. And I'm like, hey, why don't we start this business? Because the demand was there.
Yeah.
And then just learning. first company was a frac company, and learning the whole
fracking.
Yep.
Yep.
And, oil and gas and completions, and learning that process and getting out in the field and like getting all my fire retardant clothing on and looking at how it's done. I was like, what's that? What does that do? What is this? Why do you have? And they're like, wow, you ask a lot of questions. But I was like, this is so fascinating. And you learn how your lights turn on. And I've worked with waste management and water treatment and all the things. It's like,
you're kind of like the micro dirty jobs of movement. That's what I'm going to call you.
Micro is my boyfriend, and my husband knows this.
Okay, cool.
I'm slightly obsessed, and I love him because really, and seeing that dirty jobs before this business ever started, I didn't realize how that's the same appreciation. I'm
yes.
like, oh my gosh, I want to help these people.
Right.
And they just need to know, like, you can just do the littlest thing, like this little bitty stretch, like once a day, and we'll help you. And they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was that easy. Do
you work at multiple levels within one of these types of companies, or do you stay in the more manual part of it as opposed to the office part where they get, micro traumas with wrists and that kind of stuff?
It usually starts boots on the ground in the field. I love it. And then all the office people get jealous and they're like, okay, how come they get that and we don't? And so we end up adding that in because there's so many people that do work with office ergonomics and all those things that I specialize more with the folks that aren't going to sign up for the wellness program usually and all the things, and just really try to get them to turn their perspective.
And are you trying to educate their mind and their body, Lori, so that when they're going through stuff, they have to understand? Because here's what I know. Even when it comes to me, if I have to go outside and do stuff, I have a really regimented morning. Every day it's the same thing for me, which is good. And it preps my body for whatever I might need to do. But let's just say, for example, I know I got to cut down a bunch of stuff. I got fire mitigation at my house that I have to go through right now, right? So I got to take my new little chainsaw that I just bought and go chop trees down, and I got to do all that stuff. If I'm not prepared for that, it can be a problem, right? Especially if I don't do it every day. These guys go every day. They get up early. They go work hard. What's the mindset that you have to get them into to say, this is priority? If you really want to do your job well for a long time and get that paycheck to take care of your family, this needs to become priority. How hard is that to do, and how do you do it?
Sometimes it's hard. I always say I really love the old and stubborn and the young and bulletproof. There's really distinct mentalities. They kind of either go into one or the other. Because if you're young, you're like, nothing's going to hurt me, no big deal. With them, it's more talking about, if you didn't have the income, if you didn't have this job going, what would you do? Who relies on you at home? What if you're not able to, pick up the kids or, do the things? That is more the angle that I'll take with that crowd. Old and stubborn, it's really just a wake up of, I like to say you can prepare. You can be a little more aware while you're working, or if you've completely missed those, you can try to do something to recover. Like just little things go a long way. And I think that's where I kind of just try to pick at them and be real with them. Like, no, I know you're not going to go and do an hour workout before you have a 8 to 12 hour workday physical. That's not going to happen. But the little things that you can do beforehand, maybe during, a lot of times the folks that I work with, they're upside down and backwards in some weird boiler. And it's like, well, okay, here's what you can do right after if you know. And it's just finding the motivation of, hey, they're a hunter. They want to go, get the deer and drag it through the woods. I mean, like all the physical things, like
they're key
if you
values.
Still want to do that, then let's just help you here. And it is mind and body. I mean, I want to teach them a little bit about anatomy, but I've never been one to talk super anatomical or scientific. I've always just switched right to like, okay, this part hurts, then stretch.
They appreciate that. Yeah. Right? That's so appreciated.
Because they know so much more about the task. And they're the expert on that I can be like, okay, show me how that's done and what you're doing. Have you ever considered doing it this way? And then they're like, oh yeah, that's cool. It's just a sharing of minds. I think a lot of times in safety worlds, it doesn't get follow through when they're like, I'm the body expert, so you have to do it this way. And as soon as you're like, well, there's something called the NIOSH lifting equation. that someone was like, have you read the NIOSH lifting equation? And I'm not safety background or anything like that. And I later was like, well, no, I haven't. I actually went through that sucker. It's the most boring thing ever. But I'm just like, how does this even make sense sometimes when you are knee deep in the mud and, 100 pounds of iron and all these things? I was like, you can't even tell them to go inside that bubble of don't move. The work's got to get done.
The work's got to get done. What do you do with respect to on-site stuff? You go and see something like maybe let's reframe it. What's the weirdest movement posture you've seen? Like, I can't believe you can still do that without blowing a disc out right now. That is just so not cool, but you have to do it every day. Is there something that you've seen that you were just mortified and you had to figure out a way to work around that to help them offset that load?
A few. I think, so my favorite thing to ask when I go into a company, or I like to have companies kind of survey out, or I like to ask the workers, which work task sucks the most on your body? And I'm
Great question.
Yeah. Like, just get them thinking of like, okay, which one am I dreading doing? Like, I know that I'm going to be sore for however long, after I do that. And so I have a refinery client that I work with, and I love them. They are fabulous. They're in Kansas. And I ask them this all the time. And now we've worked together long enough. They're like, put Lori in the boiler. It'll be great. I mean, so I watch
It's your
them.
micro moment.
It is. It totally is, because I do learn by seeing what's going on and, getting in there. So the one is that they have to clean out boilers occasionally. And it's this huge iron thing. I mean, I don't even, and then this little 2-foot oval opening that
they have to crawl through.
It's a confined space. I get, all my little sign-offs on confined space entry, and they do it all right because they blow air in there. But they're needing to switch out like these iron plates that run along the top of it. So 200 pounds. They have to like be on their back like a dead bug, undoing all the bolts and the nuts. And then they have to like figure out how to get it out while they're laying in a bolts, like jabbing them in the back. And I'm just kind of like, I'm not really sure. There's not a great way to do that.
Right. And so you just give them the best you can, and you tell them how important it is after then recovery is in.
Well,
in
and
that
prepare
mode.
and
Yes.
recover, both. Like, if you know that you're going to go get in that small space, like get yourself small and big, like move first, get some circulation going, then go do your work. And it's not anything fast. I'm like, 2 minutes, just take a second. And then afterwards, you've been in this really small, tense space for a long time. Then you need to, all of a sudden, I tell them to think in opposites, get bigger afterwards.
Is there any trend or lack of trend for IASTM? And for those folks that are listening, that means instrument-assisted soft tissue manipulation tools, foam rollers, lacrosse balls. Is there a tendency towards or away from that, especially in the prepare mode? Because I know, in that world, like at the gym, we see people doing that all the time to prepare for workouts. Not always correctly, by the way, but they're doing it. Is that part of the industrial world, using tools, or not so much?
I know some companies that do.
Do they have lower injury rates?
I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I personally think whatever it's going to take to get them to actually do it, fine. If you get a prop and they're doing it with a prop, go for it. If it's something that they're like, no, I have my own, movement routine, I do it. We go in and we teach a certain mobility routine for warm up when someone doesn't have it. And I've had some employees, they're like, hey, I do my own thing. And I'm like, cool, do it. Maybe do a couple of these if you notice that there's something missing. But if they're already in a movement habit, then I'm like, cool, tell all your coworkers why you do that, because then they'll be like, maybe I should, when they're limping down the hallway and the other guy isn't.
Do a lot of the old stubborn folks come to you with previous injuries? Because you could certainly anchor them into, look, this is what happened. Let's talk about that. You want the young and impervious to hear those stories, but the old dogs, you want them to go, do I want this again? Right? Like,
right.
Do you see a lot of that?
There's a fair amount of it. A lot of it is just over the course of wear and tear. I think it's more just this mentality of like, well, I signed up for this. That's my future. That's what I'm supposed to have. So that's like my sentence.
Your destiny.
Guess. It is, yeah. And they're like, well, and when you try to have a conversation with them on that and try to be like, no, you can actually do things to make you feel better. So some have injuries, some just kind of feel old and busted, but kind of getting into the mindset of you can still feel better also, and not check out to be like, well, there's nothing I can do and I'll just wait till I have surgery.
Do you bring in any other factors, Lori, besides movement? Do you talk about anti-inflammatory diet, or these guys like just so tied in, let's just work on one piece, they can find their way to the other pieces?
It's mostly movement because all of this fits under the ergonomic umbrella.
Yes.
And really nutrition is not my wheelhouse. It's not my genius zone. So I refer out on that one for sure. And there's, a lot of great people out there that can help. So for sure, having a network of amazing people helps. But no, we are mostly movement.
Get after the meat and potatoes for those folks.
Yes.
So explain this to me. I wrote this down as I was studying for this episode, teaching the why behind body maintenance and resilience.
The why is always important, and body maintenance I compare to vehicle maintenance all the time because these folks are tool hands and they know how to work with tools and fix things, and they're amazing at fixing things. And I'm like, how do you maintain your car? Why won't you maintain your body in the same way, right?
Does that resonate with them?
A lot of times it does. And I asked a question once. I was like, so look around at people you work with or whatever. Like, does what they drive and how they maintain it look the same or different as their body and how they maintain it? And I was hoping for a little more consistency in answers and to say like, oh yeah, all the fit people have really great car washed and they, get their oil changed, all this stuff. Well, in my small little group that I asked, it wasn't super consistent. So, but
they got the message.
But yeah, they get the message.
And you're trying to teach them accountability, right? At the end of the day,
totally.
You wrote down, or I wrote down something else, that you're really inspiring personal responsibility and task awareness.
Huge.
And so if you get them to understand what they do and how it affects their body, then maybe, just maybe, they'll take that second to think about that movement or to think about that body position before just acting in the moment and potentially causing an injury. I'm sure that's a big part of what you do.
It's huge. Personal responsibility is huge for me because I think a lot of times companies will come in and they're like, oh, well, they say that stretch and flex programs reduce my recordability, so let's get a poster from our worker comp insurance people and stick it up on the wall. And I'm always like, and people ask me, they're like, do you have a poster? I was like, I do, but I'm like, I can't just give that to you because that's not teaching the why. And I'm like, it's a waste of money if I just gave you a poster and a video even. It's like, people have to understand the why behind what they're doing, relate it to the task. Like this part is actually so you can get in the boiler and not have a back problem or, so encompassing that whole thing. I think the company, they're all about, not all of them are all about money anymore. And the safety industry has really come a long way in these high hazard industries because it used to be like, throw the new guys in there and they'll all figure it out. But now you're seeing more and more like mentoring and companies that are really going to match people. Here's how you do it. Here's how you stay safe. And of course, on things that might kill them, their PPE and their how you do it all is very important. But then we can then sneak in on the tail end, be like, and here's how your body can survive all of that. And it's a great little circle of knowledge that gets them to think bigger. And what we've found when we can go into a company and actually care about their well-being, it's a good match. The company looks great because they're looking out for their well-being and not just the dollar. They're like, wow, I've never had a company,
care
so much. And then I like to put the personal responsibility on the worker. Like just because we put the poster up, whatever, you still have to do it. You still have to follow through. And why not? Because you really want to feel better and go enjoy your life outside of work.
Oh, so true. Lori, when I was in practice, I had come up with this program where I would go to different employers, similar to what you're doing, and I gave them a card. And the goal was give the employer the card to give to the employees. The employees would get a point of service discount by coming to me for the treatment that we offered, and I would do education for them, right? So the goal was for the employee to think it was a great added value onto their insurance program because they didn't have to pay anything for it. They got a discount just like they would if they were enrolled in an insurance plan. And I got some interesting feedback, and I'm telling you that because I want to ask you this question. Some managers or company people were worried that if we did that and then I came in and lectured on the proper way to lift, the proper way to do stretches and postural alignment stuff, that then they would be setting themselves up for more workers' comp claims, because now the employees would want to be identifying, look, I'm set to get injured here. So I had to overcome that deal. Is that something that you have to deal with?
Sort of. I get a lot that there's some people are like, well, what if they get hurt in their morning stretch program? Like, what if they stretch too far or something like that? I'm like, the likelihood of that is very rare. The way we do it, for sure, because it's more about the why and not necessarily exactly what you're doing. But yeah, it's we're all prevention end of things. We don't deal with injury or post-injury. We're trying to keep them out of that worker comp situation. So a lot of times on those new, like it's like a wellness initiative or anything that you're bringing more attention to at a company, you're going to get more reporting, right? So you're asking them to pay more attention to their aches and soreness. Okay, so you're saying, hey, we want you to early report aches and soreness. So yes, there's going to be a little bump in that, but it's all in the premise that we can catch things better when it's smaller and stay out of, that worker comp angle when they actually speak up about it. But I'm like, I don't want hypochondriacs either. So, there's the balance of things. And I guess just prefacing that you'll probably get more action initially, but then hopefully they get to know what they can do themselves.
And your reportable rates on the serious injuries should go down. So if you get a minor spike in, I got this tweak, that's going to save you later, right? Have you noticed with the involvement of your company, you and your team going into different companies, if you're with them for a period of time, that they do save injuries, that the workers are healthier, and explain what that looks like? Most definitely.
Our general success rate is over half a reduction in their recordable injuries.
Explain what
that
means.
So OSHA recordable injuries are different than worker comp reportable. So it's a little bit of a dance around. And I mean, that's not it's my wheelhouse, but my safety people know the ins and outs and the depths of all of those angles. But as far as DART rates, it's like days away from work. And if you have to restrict their work, that's all recordable injuries in OSHA's mind. And so any medical treatment is a recordable injury. So then we're trying to draw this line between medical treatment and first aid. And we're trying to stay all on the first aid side of things. And because we do that in early report, then that's where we can reduce those recordables by at least half.
That's beautiful. That's
big.
Significant.
I mean, so it can actually say, well, dollars are saved. It's always hard to prove the negative, right? Well, how do you know how many injuries you really saved because they're not happening? You just go based on, previous, it's the OSHA 300 log that they've had before, and you can compare it to the next year and the next year, and you see the trend of that going down, and you can be like, okay, yes, that saves money.
So by seeing that going down, can you take any extrapolations now that you could share with our audience who may not work in industry in those types of things, that may be everything from, we'll call home managers. In other words, they're taking care of kids and dogs and houses and running around, to people working in an office. Have you seen commonalities that anyone listening should watch out for when it comes to avoiding some sort of repetitive injury at work?
I think it's just listening to your body the best you can and not ignoring the small things. And here's again where I compare it to vehicles, and maybe it works for everybody or not, but you get the gas light comes on, that means you need to get gas. So, right, you notice when you're hungry, let's eat some food. Just the little things. Let's not have the engine light come on, because that's usually not a good thing. So pay attention to the warning lights in your body when you're constantly just rubbing your neck and feeling like you're sluggish and not sleeping well, and all the things from there. I think mostly there's a lot of people still, working remotely, working at home. That is a issue for a lot. To just, not everybody can have the most fabulous ergonomic work setup. And I myself, who teaches it, every morning where I do my social media posts is in my bed on my laptop.
Perfect,
right?
ergonomically
Perfect.
sound.
It's just like super. But I know after I do that, I go through my stretches and I can, figure out my posture. So I know what to do about what I just done.
And you give a lot of advice on stuff with music and cool stuff, whether it be on TikTok or Instagram. And it's for regular people of all kinds, right? Like general stuff. If you have back pain, this, I know you do a lot of taping on there. Yes. What are some of the common themes or engagement feedback that you're getting that people want to know about out there that you might share tips on with us today?
I think it's just all the stuff that's easy for them to do, right? Taping is so brilliant that if your back's bugging you, how about throw some tape on it? And I love the 4-inch Big Daddy Rock tape.
Oh, it's so good.
I mean, it's just like the best tool ever because cut a piece, slap it on. It helps your pain, any inflammation that might be there. And it's also been coined awareness tape. So whoever it is, folks in the field or in the office, they're like, I just am more aware because I feel it. So I'm like, oh, I'm supposed to be sitting straight up. I'm not supposed to be slouching.
That postural cueing, as it were.
All that cueing stuff. And they're like, okay, so the easy things, really, the feet are big for me. I don't, it's usually if I'm on the beach or if I'm wearing stylish shoes that aren't the best footwear, right? Courtney Connolly is always pushing really great footwear. I'm like,
yes.
But sometimes I just want cute shoes. Tape in the bottom of the feet sort of things. So with tape, all those solutions are great. And honestly, like my TikTok channel, anything rock tape has a ton of attention. I think because it's just giving a simple solution. Granted, there's people who are like, well, what did you do with that trash on the beach? And all
right. I remember that comment, actually, of watching from that.
Like, how do you know I didn't throw away the trash on the beach? Come on now. And they're like, who brings scissors to the beach? I'm like, you don't know rock tape people. And we always travel with scissors.
Yes. And so the taping side, we could do a whole show on taping, right? Like it's so amazing and it is simple. And Rock Tape, that's my brand of choice too. They do a great job of giving public education, free education. What about exercises? Is there anything on top of your mind, whether it be one body region or a few body regions that everyone should focus on, and maybe one movement that you could describe for neck and maybe low back, something like that?
Yes. I was thinking of it on the way up here, actually, while driving. My favorite tip while driving is because most people drive every day. What's that thing behind your head when you're driving?
Yeah, your headrest.
It's called a headrest. Why is it called a headrest?
So you can rest your head.
You're supposed to rest your head, actually make contact with it. And some cars are actually really bad about that. I actually have a whole YouTube rental car ergonomics thing going on. So check that out.
Watch it. Watch it on YouTube.
That's out there. But because sometimes it's weird to rest your head back on your headrest. But think about it. That actually puts you into better posture when your head is resting and not looking up. Like most people, if I'm checking posture on someone and I'm like, okay, can you get your tailbone, your mid-back, and your head on the wall? And then they're like, yep, my head's on the wall. And they look and their face is like up at the ceiling, right? Yes. I'm like, that's not good posture. So then when I try to teach someone of, rest your head on your headrest, you still have to drive. Like you're not looking up at the ceiling, you're driving. So it's a good practice of that chin tuck.
Right.
So then that's my favorite, because associating something with what you're doing every day anyway is going to create a better habit. So a chin tuck, a head rest moment is a great way to form a new habit. So that's one of my favorites, is use your headrest when you drive.
I love that. And there's something about cueing too, and you and I have gone through this many, many times in different ways, but a cue, for those of you watching or listening, is when something is touching your skin. It's more than just words. There's verbal cueing, there's visual cueing, and then there's kinesthetic cueing where we're touching, right?
Right.
And by you saying, hey, take your head backward or retract it until you touch the headrest, that gives you a goal. It's a kinesthetic cue that I got to get there. Do you remember when we were doing the courses on some of the advanced movement stuff, and we would put people in a band and hold the band off a rig, and then we would say, look, we're either correcting with assistance or resistance, but driving a movement pattern of, let's say, a correct squat, through having a band pulling you one way or another, it forces your brain to get into the game, right? Same thing with this cueing on the headrest.
Same thing. Yeah.
It's beautiful.
And habit forming as well. So all those. So I think the headrest is one of my big ones.
Okay.
Something else that I call the wall stretch. A lot of times people think of wall stretch like in the doorway and they're chest opening kind of thing. But I have where you put your hand on the wall. I know people visually are going to get the benefit for this, and how do I describe it for people listening? If you're standing next to the wall, not facing it, but it's out perpendicular from your chest, and your hand's flat on the wall, and then you can turn your way. So it's cool because even in a chair, in an office chair, in a cubicle, or wherever you're at, you can just reach out and put your hand flat on the wall with your fingertips pointing backwards. And then you kind of bend and straighten a little bit or look away. This one, it's really nice.
Pesky.
Right? I'm like, oh, all the things. So I call that the wall stretch. And whether you're on a computer or you're working with tools all day or any of these things, that one has tended to solve a majority of problems. I tell people, like, every hour, do it for 10 seconds.
And so kind of from chest up, that gives a lot of relief because we're so used to pulling forward, right? So that takes us into that. And a nerve flossing too. We're getting the nerves to stretch with that.
Right. So it's all just opposite of your crappy posture.
Yes.
Is opening. So if you don't have the wall or anything, we'll sometimes call it the Titanic stretch. So your arms are out to the side at the front of the Titanic, right? That whole looking up moment.
I can almost hear the music in the back of my mind right now.
I know, whistle that. I can't whistle.
I can't do it either.
But that one I give all the time. Someone's like, I feel 10 years younger after doing that stretch. I was like, cool, I'll quote you on that.
That's beautiful. Speaking of quoting people, do you have any favorite authors, people that inspire you to help you grow in your profession, people that you might want someone like me or one of our audience to follow to learn more about this kind of stuff?
Well, business stuff. I know we both follow the same person of Gary Vaynerchuk, and I love all his things about just, he's the one that helped me really learn to put content out that's helpful. And just be like, oh, this is so easy to think about, like just selfless helping people. And especially when you get into such a niche business, it's been helpful to people even that have been around me for years. They're like, oh, that's what you do. And I'm like, okay, so obviously I'm not really great at, describing everything. That's helped just marketing wise. But the last time I actually sat down and read a book was before I had kids. I'm bad on reading books, but podcasts and audiobooks and all those certain things have been all over the map on things.
What are you working on right now? What's inspiring you right now?
Mental toughness of what to do when everything is chaos in your world.
Okay.
Because we're moving states. We're moving from Colorado to Florida for home base, but that doesn't change the business at all. But
yeah, because you can do companies anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Which works great, but also had our oldest graduate high school and is off to college Sunday. And it's all these things happening at once. So I guess who's mindset-wise? Brendan Burchard is pretty good at that. So I've listened to his things a bit, but really just, I don't know, I self-teach a lot of things of stay in the mindset, stay positive, stay forward. Don't get stuck in, this is hard, this is difficult, what's going wrong.
Yeah.
But, what's in the future and moving forward.
Haven't you found that what we tell ourselves is we're focusing on, that's what we find?
Totally.
When, like you mentioned, it's so hard. It's so hard. Whenever you say it's so hard to do this, I could see you applying that in your business too, right? Like, oh, I don't have time. It's too cold. It's too this. Well, you're right. It is. But then you see this other person that does it every single day. It's not for them. It's the same weather. It's the same darkness. It's the same alarm. So what I'm hearing you say is, our self-talk and our worldview changes as the way we see the world.
Completely. And it's just a go-to. And I'd have to think back on where I learned that mindset. I remember, I think it was right at the time that I was coming in and getting involved with Rock Tape was at the point where the business just started doing better because it was like, okay, this is tough. This is hard. I'm a new, unknown business. What exactly am I doing? How to explain it? Who wants to work with that attitude is really the perspective I got. And I'm like, oh yeah, no one wants to work with someone that's like struggling and having a hard time or, all those things. So I was like, no, let's go. And I was like, I just start things. I got super fired up with all the Rock Tape education and then just kept going like, this is going to be awesome. I can't wait. We're doing new things and new ideas. And it really bounced from there.
Nice.
And so that's when we kind of branched out of a couple states to many more than that.
That's so cool. Lori, if someone wanted to get a hold of you to learn more about your programs, what kind of companies you work with, just maybe ask you some questions, get involved, and you've obviously shown your expertise on our show today, how would they reach you? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
Great way is the website, balancebio.com. You can also get it to themovementninja.com. But that's where you can kind of find out who we work with, what we do, our services. Also, there's a big old button in the corner that says schedule a call, and that schedules right with me. And you can ask questions on that. I do have a text number as well.
Of course, yeah.
May I? 704-4851.
Got it. And what about your social media handles for your various channels?
The Movement Ninja Lori is Instagram, and the Movement Ninja on TikTok. LinkedIn, for me, is really great. I have great conversations on LinkedIn, so just search Lori Frederic on LinkedIn or Balance Biomechanics. But a lot of connections I've made on LinkedIn because I work with other companies and businesses. I love that platform.
That's
as well.
so cool. Yes. So my final question for you: if you could have a meal of your choice, whether it's a long dinner and it's as much time as you need, with any person, alive or dead, who would it be, and what would be your main topic of conversation?
Shoot. Gosh, throwing these deep ones at me all of a sudden. Oh,
it's
alive
my
or
job.
dead, who would it be? And oh gosh. I really, it would probably be my late father-in-law, my husband's dad. I got to meet him, but he had dementia, so he really wasn't in a great state of mind when I got to know him. He was an NFL referee for 20 years. And
oh, wow.
He's the things that I hear about him are so amazing. They started Frederic Printing, which was, used to be a family thing here. I think it would be his perception of, I don't know, the world as he grew up. My husband was the youngest of 5, so there's like almost a 20-year difference between the oldest and the youngest. So of course I'd be like, did my husband actually, do the things that he said as he was doing? No. It would be more life perspective, right, than trying to nitpick on those sort of things. But I mean, he just was an amazing person. I would have liked to get to know better.
That's cool. Lori, well, I feel like I've gotten to know you better. This has been fantastic. What a great investment of time. I hope that the people listening have gotten some from it too. If you've listened to this or seen it, please share it with someone that works in the industry, someone who could be in plumbing or roofing or any kind of oil fields, all that stuff, because they need to hear this. And not that they need to go do everything that we talked about today, but they need to understand they have control. They can make a choice to make their work experience and their life experience as good as we can, as good as it can be.
I love that. Well said.
Thank you, Lori. Well, thank you for being a guest. I look forward to seeing you soon, and best of luck in your move. I know you're going to kill it. When you're back in town, you got to come back and be a guest again.
Oh, most definitely I will. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.